All right, shalom, 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 back, brothers. This is Brother Kazaki. I was distracted because I was going to share some. I had some books here that were instrumental in my walk, and I've given my testimony on many occasions to talk about different things, how the Most High had been dealing with me from a boy, a young lad, I should say, or a youngster, about the covenant of Israel and different things that I knew within my innermost part that it was something different about me and us as a people, but me, I took it personal that certain things were important to me, and I began to seek after. So the Most High would start dealing with me at an early age. So as I grew and got older and began to take an interest in the Bible, began to study and read different things. First, I went through the challenge where I had felt like that the Bible was a book of fables. I didn't believe in the Bible. I threw it out. This book is white man's book. It's a book to keep us under control. So I threw it out. Started studying, and I was working in Philly at the school district of Philly. School district of Philadelphia is the proper name for it. And we would sit around the table and talk a lot of different people from different religious viewpoints and backgrounds. And so that kind of put me in a position where I started researching. I started reading books, started actually really reading the Bible instead of just carrying it and reading the New Testament. Read a little New Testament Bible. I had a little teeny small New Testament Bibles. It just had the New Testament. It didn't have the old in it. Carrying that around. So then I started reading, and then I started getting challenged by people who were non-Christians that were into all kinds of religious viewpoints, atheists, agnostics, 5%ers, 1%ers, Muslims, the Shiite Muslims, Sunni Muslims, Seventh-day Adventists, Episcopalians, Lutherans, Protestants, all different kinds of people would sit at the table, would talk. So I started getting to books and started going research and so forth. So I went to a bookstore in Philly, and this bookstore, it might be still there on it's a 42nd Street or 40th Street, 40th and Market, I believe it is still. Or 52nd Street. It's 52nd Street. I think it's 52nd Street. And it was a bookstore called Know Thyself Bookstore. So I used to go over there and buy a lot of books. They had a lot of black awareness books. And I stumbled across this one book here, which I'm about to show you in a second. They have 2 volumes, and I only had the first volume. I just recently got, not recently, but I got the second volume, but this is the first volume here. This book is called The Black Presence in the Bible. And the author of this book is a man by the name of Reverend Walter Arthur McCrae. And he produced this Bible. Let's see, this was copyrighted in, let's see, what year was this? This was first published in 1990. So this book came out, and so I read this book, and so it kind of struck my curiosity, because when you look at the contents of the book, it talks about black people written in the Bible, why we should speak of black and Africa, and then it talks about Ham and the Hamitic descendants, Cushite, the non-Hamitic people, black people and their contemporary Bible settings, etc. So this book was like a launching pad for knowledge for me, because the Most High had been dealing with me as a kid, as I said. But when I started reading other books, this was one of the first ones that kind of stuck out to me. And so it was through this that the Most High started dealing with me about the identity, right? But prior to that, I was studying the Bible, and I would read about Israel. This is before I got this book here, because it was 1990. This is right around the time when my dad passed. And I was reading in Psalms and different places about how that the children of Israel were loud, played on the instrument skillfully, and making a loud noise and joyful noise, and they was dancing and all that. And I said, that's black people. I mean, nobody had to tell me nothing different. When I would read that, I said, I know that we've gone to white churches, European Catholic churches, and white Episcopal churches and stuff like that. They wasn't loud. So I already knew this wasn't them. And then the Jewish people that I knew of, they wasn't loud either. But when you go to the Baptist church or the Pentecostal church, boy, it's a whole different ball game. You think you swear you in a football field or something. It's so loud in general. Now the Methodist church have stepped up their game now. They making noise now. But so this was the first book I got. So I never actually met, because apparently I think he is in Chicago, but I don't even know if he's still living or not. But Reverend Walter Arthur McCrae, this was the first book of knowledge I got, started reading. And so I grew, and then the Most High began to deal with me. That's when I got the revelation. The Most High told me to study the book Daniel's 70 weeks, to study the people of Israel, and to study the place of Israel, and the prophecies pertaining to Israel, and that the Bible would open up to me, and I would begin to understand things that I didn't understand in the Bible. So I began to do that. And while I was in the church, I started preaching or teaching that we are Israelites. Okay. That went over pretty well back then. That was in the 90s. Then later on, I came in contact with the Table of Nations. That's been one of my prominent series I did. Matter of fact, I think I had this one first. See, this one here, yeah, this one. No, I had volume 2 first. That's what it was. The Table of Nations, where it broke down the sons of Noah. And so I started doing my my research on the Table of Nations, and that's where I got the revelation of who Israel, from a biblical perspective, how to identify the children of Israel. So then I moved to Chicago, and I had this thought process in my mind. I was teaching that we Israel, and I didn't know there was a community of people that believe like me called Hebrew Israelite. I just thought I was a person who was an ex-Christian who just had a strange doctrine. So I ran across some people, and they said, you sound like this group of people called Hebrew Israelites. And I said, oh yeah, I said, okay, I want to meet them. I said, because if they sound like me, then we need to be together in fellowship. So shortly after that, I came across this book here. This is From Babylon to Timbuktu, and I actually met the author. He's from Chicago, and this is Rudolph Windsor, and the book is entitled From Babylon to Timbuktu. And this basically explains to you how Israel went from captivity in Babylon, Timbuktu, and from Timbuktu to scattered to the four corners, just like it says in prophecy. So this was what was given to me, and it kind of aided. Now I have other books that I have tapped into, but not as much as these here. And then most importantly, the scriptures. Just reading the scriptures and finding anything that had to do with Israel, any prophecy that had to do with Israel. And then back in the early 2000s, I would pull out stuff like different prophecies talking about Israel on the corner like a wild bull in the net. I mean, things like Israel being hidden in the prison houses, things like one of the most prominent ones was the prophet said to Israel that they would cast their nets on Israelites, and that they would travel into lands of captivity in the pits of ships. And when I saw it, I was like, wow. And then I came in contact with the Hebrew Israelites of Dimona. I never was a part of them, but I came in contact with their website because I was like, well, I want to find a mega congregation, because I was used to big churches. So I was looking for a mega Hebrew congregation. Does any exist? You have large Christian Hebrew congregations, but you don't have no real covenant keeping Israelite mega congregations like that. People tend to stay away from that. So then I was introduced to this book here. This is another book by Rudolph Windsor. This is called The Valley of Dry Bones. This was a book that, if you are, this is kind of like companion to the from Babylon to Timbuktu. This one here was produced in well, you know, let me correct myself. Rudolph Windsor is from the Philadelphia metropolitan area, but I met him in Chicago. Now, I don't know if he's living in Chicago now or not, but I met him in Chicago. So a lot of people seem to have moved to Chicago. I'm not sure, so please forgive me if I put him in a place where he doesn't belong or where he's not, but that's why I met him in Chicago. But this book here was published. This one was published in 1986. The Valley of Dry Bones. So I don't know whether or not he inspired this one that was published in 1990 or not, because I never got a hold of this one here. And then the other book I have here, Babylon and Timbuktu. When did he do this one here? Rudolph Windsor, he went to Gratz College. Let's see. This one was produced in, this was produced in 1969. So it was way before the others. So Rudolph he probably was the pioneer in the book form for Hebraic studies. But so there you have it. So that's pretty much the things that were profound in my coming up in this walk, in addition to the other things that I shared. And just the mere fact that the biggest thing that really got me was Exodus 20, when they would read it every Sunday. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall a man labor and do all his work, but the Sabbath day, right? That bothered me, because I'm looking at the calendar, 7th day, and I'm saying, 7th day is Saturday. But every Sunday, we remember the 7th day. So I'm like, something is wrong with this picture. I'm believing that the 7th day is a day of worship. I'm reading it says that, but I'm looking at something totally different. We are keeping the first day of the week. Right? So that's all I have. Prayerfully you got something out of that. And we're going to come back at another time and share. So I'm going to end for now. Until the next time, may the blessing of the Most High Yah be with you and your family. Shalom, shalom, shalom.